Hi guys, Tish here and welcome back to my channel Auto Social UK. Testing all of these cars, it takes a really special car to actually pique my interest enough to buy one. It has to be affordable, first and foremost, that's really important to me. It also has to be, of course, competitive, and lastly, it has to be fun. A car for me to buy needs to make me smile every time I look at it. And when the ORA Funky Cat was first announced for the UK, this was a car that did exactly that for me. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now really excitingly, though absolutely loving the look of this electric car, I've only ever reviewed it on Electroheads and I've never actually spent any extended time with it. And where better to do it than now when I've got a bit more knowledge when it comes to electric cars, and I've even just recently got my at-home wall box, so I can now experience what it's like to be an electric car owner. And that fell just in time for ORA to have opened in Bury St Edmunds. And they asked me, Tish, why don't you spend a couple of weeks with the Funky Cat, formerly Funky Cat, now O3, to find out if it's as good as you hoped it would be. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you exactly how I found this car, living with it for the past week and a half. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. If you like new car reviews and car content, hit the subscribe button. And if you wanted to test drive the Funky Cat O3 for yourself, then you can do that at Bury St Edmunds ORA. So first off, let's talk about the styling, because let's face it, this is the standout feature of this car. No longer funky by name, but it'll always be funky by nature. This car is super quirky and it definitely divides opinions. But I think some of the best cars in history do divide opinions. And interestingly, when I've asked men what they think about this car, they either don't like it or they're unsure, whereas women tend to like it a lot more. And I'm glad for that. We need more cars which are targeted towards women. That doesn't mean that men can't like these, especially in the black with the black interior. It's much more palatable, but I love that it's a bit quirky, a little bit different. It makes people smile. It reminds me a lot of my favourite girly cars on the market, the Fiat 500, the Volkswagen Beetle, and of course, because of those round headlamps, the iconic Mini. And one of my favourite features is in these round headlamps. So these are LED and they're also automatically high beam assist as standard, but they have a lovely feature when you unlock it, where you get this kind of circling lights. I just think it's a little bit quirky and it's a really nice feature. Definitely at this angle, you'll see that kind of Beetle appearance about it. So how big is this car? Well, it's around the same size as an ID3. That makes it a great versatile family car. But whereas on the ID3, they've kind of focused on a lot of boot space and not quite as much space in the back, with this car, it's got quite a small boot, but loads of space in the back. So I'll show you that in a moment. And of course, I'm not completely head over heels about this car. There are things that I'm not going to like. And one of the things is so small, but it's just this little honeycomb detail. See, I can barely find it, just on the bottom here. I know that they've done that so that it doesn't have quite such a flowing design, but I just think it looks a tiny bit like you've bumped it into a wall. The alloy wheels are really nice. All versions of this car come on alloy wheels, so no hubcaps found here, and they have that quirky kind of retro feel about them. They remind me of a very similar style that you get on the Volkswagen Beetle. In fact, I had those wheels because I loved how it looked retro. You also get some really nice colour options. My favourite is the mint green. I'm pretty sure we get that in the UK, and I'm so upset that you have to go to Ireland to get the kind of mocha colour. I really wish we'd got that. Personally, to me, it's not my favourite in red. I really like the darker blue colours or the mint green, but it does look really good, and you get the contrasting black roof and you also get the black wing mirrors. So, boot space, let's talk about it, because ORA with this car really have focused on rear space rather than the boot space, and that means it is quite compact in here. you'll find 228 litres. Now that's going to be enough for a weekly shop, for a couple of suitcases and for most of your day-to-day needs. But if you are a wheelchair user or if you've got a pushchair, then you may need to opt for one of the larger models which will be coming out of ORA in the next couple of years. You may be wondering, something looks like it's missing, but what is it? Well, it's the rear lights. So whereas on standard cars on the market, you'll find the lights kind of on the edges of the car, they're almost hidden when it comes to this one. So on this car, you'll find the rear lights built into the back window, just adding to that quirkiness. Are you ready to ramp up the controversial styling? Well, check out the interior of this car. This really is very out there. And I know that you're probably going to predict this. I love it. I think it's so cool. Once again, like the external colour, if I was going to get this car, it probably wouldn't be in red. I love the blue version of this. You get this very nice teal dashboard. If you don't want something which is quite so in your face, you can go for black interior instead, which I have actually done a little bit of footage with one of those, so I'm going to input that now. But this version, if you want something which is going to brighten your day and make you smile, it's got to be this. It's so cool, right? You get this kind of leather effect on the dashboard, which is slightly suede-y, and then you get the contrasting stitching, and you've also got the contrasting element on the steering wheel. You've got the red leather, and then you've got the cream leather with the red stitching. It's very, very cool. In terms of quality, it's a bit mixed. So everything higher up the cabin, the seats, the armrest, the dashboard, the doors are all lovely. But as you get a little bit further down, then you have got some cheaper, scratchier plastics. But I actually don't think it's that much of a problem. Overall, I just think it's so much fun in here. They've really dared to go outside of the box, and this is not often something we see in the UK. They play it very safe. So it's nice to have something which is a little bit different.
Interestingly, having the appearance of a smaller car, this car is actually quite a lot more practical when it comes to rear space as the EX30, which I tested last week. The rear doors open much wider, so getting in is far simpler. Of course, there are some slight negatives, and that small negative is there's not much space between the floor and where you sit. Therefore, your knees come up quite high. But both legroom, shoulder space and headroom are more than sufficient, especially for a small car. And the sturdy armrest with cup holders and the USB charging just aid in its practicality as a family car.
To those of you who the Funky Cat or the O3 is not a new car, you may remember that even before they launched in the UK, one of the headline things that they said about it was it could be under £20,000. And that was a huge prospect because it would make it one of the cheapest electric cars on sale in the UK. And then it arrived and it started from in upwards of 30,000. That's quite a big difference and it was a big shame. But why the huge price hike? Well, it is actually justified. You see, whilst many car brands, for instance like the Dacia with the Spring and also the Citroën with the C3, have chosen to make their car not quite as safe, but to go for affordability, this car, being a new brand into the UK, wanted to make sure that they had a really safe offering. And to me, that makes sense, because if you're going to take a risk on a brand that you haven't heard before, you probably want it to be as safe as possible. And that is exactly what they've done. You see, as standard, this car comes with all of these safety features. And are you ready? Because it's a big list. Adaptive cruise control, intelligent turning control, intelligent cruise control, traffic jam assist, lane departure warning, intelligent evade, high beam assist, auto headlights, millimetre wave radars, ultrasonic radars, low speed emergency braking, front collision warning, auto emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, junction assist, rear cross traffic alert and brake, rear collision warning, blind spot detection, lane change assist, door opening warning, LED headlights, emergency steering function, traffic sign recognition, driver fatigue detection, speed limit alert, cruise control limit, driver and front passenger airbags, centre airbag, front and side airbags and curtain airbag, front and rear seatbelt with pre-tensioner and load limiter, rear ISOFIX mounts, seatbelt unfastened warning.
2 hours later.
Lock, e-call, intelligent motion detection and an anti-theft alarm horn. So this car gets every single bit of expensive safety equipment that they could throw at it. And that means it makes it a slightly more expensive car. So that's kind of the trade-off that you're getting. It may have had a price hike, but the reason behind that is because you're actually getting a 5-star NCAP rating and awarded by NCAP the safest small car that you can buy. I was pre-warned before I drove this car that the safety features can be quite intrusive, and at first I definitely found this. The steering systems and also the facial recognition will make sure that you're behaving yourself, which is never a negative, but it can be a little bit intrusive to start with. The good news is all of these systems can actually be turned off almost completely. The only one that you'll need to turn on and off is that active lane assist. But everything else can be switched off. This means that unlike Hyundai products and Kia products, which every single time you get in the car, you have to turn off your speed warning, that's when you go over the speed limit, with this car, once you turn it off, it stays off. So it means that it will keep you nice and safe if you want to use it. But actually, if you don't want them to be intrusive, you can turn them off completely. It gets a very respectable 170 brake horsepower and it will go from 0 to 62 in around 8.3 seconds. So it's not the quickest or sportiest car, but I think that's pretty good, and just like a lot of electric cars, it has a nice build up of its speed. That's one thing that I found quite good about this car, is it doesn't have that kind of really instant acceleration which can leave your wheels spinning. It actually builds the power nicely. When I was doing my research, not many people really enjoyed the drive of this car. They said that it wasn't very engaging and it could be a little bit crashy. And that surprised me, because over this week, I've actually really enjoyed it. One of the things that did surprise me about it is just how well weighted the steering is. It has a nice weightedness about it, and that means that you feel slightly more connected to the road. And that's paired together with the fact that this car sits a little bit lower. It means that you get that engagement that you lose in a lot of its SUV rivals. It comes fitted with a fairly modest 48 kilowatt hour battery, and that gives you a claimed range of 193 miles according to ORA. I've been spending time with this car when it's been pretty chilly and actually very, very wet. I've gone through a lot of floodwater and torrential rain in this car, and I've been seeing closer to 150 to 180 depending on how warm it's been, and I don't think that's too bad. In the summer, if you're spending time with this car, I can easily see you getting between 180 and 190 miles. In terms of charging, it takes around 7.5 hours from a standard at-home wall box. And speaking of which, it's been an absolute pleasure spending time with an electric car and being able to top up at home. It leaves me with pretty much no range anxiety. I've done trips to Cambridge, trips to London, and I know that I can do all of these journeys there and back without having to stop and public charge, as it has enough charge to get me to most places and back. If you do need to public charge, this is where this car slightly loses out. It has a maximum charging speed of 63 kilowatts. That's slightly behind some other brands. And it means that if you are doing a lot of long journeys, then you're going to be sitting at the chargers for a little bit longer compared to other competitors in the market. But if you're only doing short journeys, I can't see it being a problem. Next up, we're going to talk about tech, because it's a pretty big deal in this car. It comes with loads of tech as standard. The usual things you get include satellite navigation, you also get wireless phone charging, and on all versions you get a rear view parking camera, which I found to work really, really well, especially for when moving in kind of small distances. You get a really good feel of where the car is using that 360 camera. It gets an AI assistant, which can either be woken up by using a voice command which you set, or you can press this button on the steering wheel. What's the weather going to be like today?
Today in Towfield, looks like it will be mostly sunny with a high of 8 and low of 0 degrees.
It's also really handy for setting your locations. Get me directions to Bury St Edmunds.
Bury St Edmunds, England, United Kingdom, right.
There is loads of functions you can use this for. It can open the windows and various other things. It can also do things like play games with you. I'm going to do a full tech dive of this car on the channel. So that includes the AI assistant as well as lots of other functions. So if you want to see that, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel and keep an eye out for it. Plus, if you have any tech questions, then please do let me know and I'll try and answer them. In terms of usability, of course, a lot of things are in the touchscreen, like you'll get in a lot of other cars nowadays. And whilst it takes a short time to get used to, it's really well laid out and it's simple to find everything. So that concludes my week spent with this fun and quirky electric car. Sure, it's not perfect, but then very few cars are. However, if you want a car which is seriously safe and is going to get people chatting to you about how interesting and different it is, then I think it's a great option. Of course, you also have those really enticing low monthly fees, which mean that this is a great step into the electric car market. But let me know, what do you think of the ORA Funky Cat or the ORA 03? Is this an option that you've been looking at? What else are you looking at? Let me know in the comments down below. If you did have any further questions or if you wanted to test drive one for yourself, then you can do that at Bury St Edmunds ORA. I really hope you have enjoyed the video today, guys. If you have, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Want to see more? Then hit the subscribe button. And until next time, see you later.